Willkommen. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean Huggins and this is React with Hugs. Thank you so much for being here. Today, check this out. Oh, let me hide my camera. Bam. There we go. Europe's old superpower awakens. This is Germany. This is the rebirth of Germany's military. This should be interesting. But real quick, before we get into that, if you haven't already, then please consider subscribing, leaving a like on the video, leaving your mustard down in the comment section. All of this stuff is quick, easy, free, and it really helps support the channel a lot. So thank you in advance. Anyways, let's waste no more time yapping and hop straight into it. Los gates.
The invasion of Ukraine has awoken a sleeping giant, and that giant is hungry and ready to fight for the peace that it believes
Hungry? I thought we were talking about Germany.
should reign in Europe. In this video, we'll explore why Germany's military rebirth is a total nightmare for Russia. On May 28th, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz made a special announcement. Speaking directly to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Merz said that Germany is ready to work alongside Ukraine to help it build long-range missiles it can use to defend itself against Russia's forces. We want to talk about production, and we will not publicly discuss details, is all that Merz would share.
Somehow, that's even more badass that he is saying he's not going to share any details
with the press. That alone represents a change in Germany's approach to the Ukraine war. In the past, Germany has been very transparent, some might say even overly transparent, about what it's doing to help Ukraine. That was a problem. By revealing how it helps, Germany was also providing Putin with the early stages of the blueprints he'd need to counter whatever Germany sent to Ukraine.
I see.
Now, Germany is keeping everything under wraps. We can guess, though. The odds are that Germany is preparing to help Ukraine start building the devastating long-range Taurus missile inside Ukraine itself. That missile, which has a 310-mile range, would afford Ukraine the ability to target air bases, military installations, and so much more inside Russia itself. Merz also said that his decision is designed to show Putin that there are real consequences for his actions. And that's not all. Along with the promise to help Ukraine start building long-range missiles, Germany has also announced a bumper $5.6 billion aid package to Ukraine. Merz says that this money heralds the start of a new form of military-industrial cooperation between our two countries, when referring to Ukraine, while adding that this cooperation extends beyond helping Ukraine to build missiles domestically. The two will also be working together to build weapons in Germany, opening up the possibility that Ukraine may soon be able to use German factories to produce drones, artillery, and everything else it needs to defend against Russia. Don't underestimate the importance of this statement. Right now, Ukraine is trying to build weapons while facing constant aerial and ground bombardments from Putin's forces. Even one Russian missile breaking through Ukraine's defenses could be enough to ruin a manufacturing facility.
Ah, okay. That actually is huge because then, Ukraine can produce stuff without actually being, in the line of fire and can basically safely produce things and then ship them back to Ukraine.
Limiting Ukraine's ability to defend itself in the process. If Ukraine can transfer its domestic manufacturing to German facilities, that problem will disappear. Well, unless Putin decides to attack Germany. That's a possibility Germany is preparing for as well, as we'll explain later.
Oh, shit. Dude, I mean, that's a very real possibility that you need to prepare for, but oh man, that just sent shivers down my spine. Just thinking about that.
Was followed by Germany and Ukraine signing a memorandum of cooperation, with Germany saying that
Friedrich
a
Merz
significant number of weapon systems will be made by the end of 2025. The first batch is going to be ready for Ukraine to use in just a couple of weeks. When we say use, we mean Ukraine can fire its new missiles at any target it chooses in Russia. We know that because just a day before Merz's missile cooperation announcement, Germany's chancellor also revealed that Germany, along with France, the US, and the UK, have lifted all restrictions on how Ukraine can use the missiles it provides. Previously, Ukraine was told that it could only use Western-made missiles to strike specific targets. Typically, those targets...
Really? Interesting. I actually didn't know that. Like, all these countries give Ukraine missiles, but then they can tell them what to do with them? Seems kind of strange to me, but all right.
Were either inside the occupied Ukrainian territory that Russia holds or in border regions Russia was using to assault Ukraine. Now Ukraine can use Western missiles to hit Russia wherever it wants. Russia knows how bad this decision is for Putin. The Russian president's mouthpiece, Dmitry Peskov, has already lambasted the decision as dangerous, while claiming that it runs absolutely contrary to any future peace agreement with Ukraine. Of course, Peskov says all of this as Russian missiles continue to rain down on Ukraine's cities. But what we see here is that Russia is running scared. In this week alone, Germany has made several military announcements that showcase how seriously it's taking the threat Russia poses. That alone will be a nightmare for Putin. But the reality is that the Russian president's bad dream is just getting started. Putin now has to face up to the fact that his decision to invade Ukraine has sparked a series of developments in Europe that he may never have thought possible. Germany is at the forefront of those developments. A nation that for so long has tried to avoid building up its military for fear of giving off echoes of its last major military buildup during World War II is coming roaring back to the global stage. The shackles are being cast off. Germany's decision to help Ukraine build missiles while removing restrictions on those missiles is just a small part of a massive military revival that's only happening because Russia invaded Ukraine. And when we say massive, we may even be understating just what Germany is planning. Let's start with military spending. For decades, Germany has limited the amount of money it spends on defense. We can see that from its failure to adhere to NATO's recommendation that all of its member nations spend at least 2% of their gross domestic product, or GDP, on defense per year.
Yeah, I think after World War I and World War II and what is it called, the Treaty of Versailles, I think Germany took a back seat to building, their military and military spending in general. And I think that's fine because then Germany was able to put all of that money towards rebuilding a very strong economy and job market and all kinds of other great stuff for the country. But now you opened the floodgates. Now here comes Germany once again.
Germany hasn't been doing that for a long time. As Reuters points out, 2024 represented the first year that Germany hit the 2% target since the 1990s, showcasing how Germany's military has been on the decline for at least a couple of decades. In fact, the last time Germany hit 2% of GDP spending was in 1991, according to Macro Trends. Ever since then, there has been a consistent downward trend in spending, with the lowest point coming in 2005, when Germany spent just 1.07% of its GDP on defense. The country got better from there, a little. From 2005 to 2022, it hovered around the 1.2% of GDP mark, sometimes dropping below and occasionally going a little bit higher. The most Germany spent during this period was 1.39% in 2022. Still 0.
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Germany had a very defensive, very small military spending budget and military in general. It was just a relatively small defensive military that they used during this time, if I'm not mistaken.
1% lower than the NATO recommendation. None of this showcased a country that was taking its military and its role as one of Europe's leading powers very seriously. Accusations of freeloading, particularly from US President Donald Trump, were hard for Germany to argue against given its low military spending. And even when that country tried to do something about the problem, such as creating a law in 2023 that legally obligated Germany to hit 2% of GDP spending on defense, barriers arose. Germany ended up walking that law back, again demonstrating that it wasn't quite ready to meet the challenge that Putin's Ukraine invasion presented. That was all great for Putin. Germany, if it reached its full military potential, would represent the largest stumbling block Europe could present to Putin's plans for expansion. As long as Germany argued domestically over how much it spent on defense, keeping the numbers low as a result, Putin was happy. But things started to change last year. As we mentioned, 2024 saw Germany meet the NATO spending target for the first time since 1991. By the end of the year, the country was also experiencing a political shift that created massive problems for Putin. Former Chancellor Olaf Scholz is out. New Chancellor Friedrich Merz is in. And with Merz has come a transformation in Germany's defense spending that is going to put it on track to become Europe's strongest nation. On March 18th, Germany's lawmakers historically voted for a huge increase in spending that amounts to committing around $547 billion over the next few years to a special infrastructure fund. That decision was notable because this fund was exempt from Germany's strict debt rules that have kept its spending low for so long, with Merz hailing the decision as being massive for Europe. The decision we are taking today can be nothing less than the first major step towards a new European defense community, Merz exclaimed. He also made it a point that even nations that aren't part of the European Union will benefit from Germany's spending spree, indicating that there's a change in attitude in the country. Germany is no longer content to tag along as a freeloader. It wants to bring all of Europe, at least those countries that feel threatened by Putin, under its security umbrella. The law passed with a vote of 513 to 207. that also saw Germany relax its debt laws so that defense spending would no longer be subjected to the 0.35% of GDP limit on borrowing that they faced in the past. All Putin could do was watch. And Germany's increases in spending aren't going to end there. In May, Germany's Foreign Minister Johann Vadeful announced that Germany is going to push toward investing 5% of its GDP into defense.
Damn, 5%. Holy crap. That is a huge increase in spending. From the lowest being a little over 1% to now spending up to 5% of GDP? Holy crap. Whew, that's a lot.
By 2031. His claims come 1 month after Trump suggested that NATO nations should be hitting that figure. Vadeful says that Germany will hit its new 5% target by splitting its spending. Traditional military spending will account for 3.5% of the 5%, with the other 1.5% being dedicated to defense-related infrastructure. Assuming Germany follows through, it's essentially just committed to spending around $180 billion per year on its military by 2031.
Hold on a second. Let me go buy some stock in Rheinmetall and all these other huge name German defense manufacturers. Let me just get in on the German stock market real quick.
Russia is likely to spend around $135.8 billion on its military in 2025. Germany just said it's going to move beyond that figure at a time when Russia is embroiled in an active war and Germany isn't. Of course, spending a lot of money doesn't mean much if that money isn't spent well. Germany appears to have that aspect of its military revival covered. According to Forbes, the hundreds of billions of dollars Germany is committing to its military will essentially allow for a complete redesign of the Bundeswehr. Germany is going to buy more armored vehicles, build new air defense batteries, create more warships, and even shoot more spy satellites into Earth's orbit. It also plans to invest
spy satellites and everything? Holy crap, this really is a complete overhaul.
Heavily in artificial intelligence and will equip its soldiers with radio jammers that can be used to send Russia's drones and missiles off course. Germany also plans to add around 20,000 new soldiers to its current standing force of 180,000, which will also allow it to create a mechanized brigade it can station in Lithuania. A Baltic state is a NATO ally and one of several nations that fear they may be next if Russia succeeds in its invasion of Ukraine. All told, Forbes says, the new spending will fund around a dozen new initiatives that all combine to strengthen the German army. Combine that with infrastructure spending that seems designed to turn Germany into NATO's central hub for a possible future war with Russia. What Putin is seeing here is a complete transformation in the German approach. Up until now, Germany has been happy to play a supporting role. We see that in the fact that it's Europe's largest single contributor to Ukraine. Those commitments aren't going to end, as noted by Merz when announcing the latest round of aid and the missile cooperation scheme. However, those contributions will now be made by a country that's investing so heavily in its military that by 2031, it'll be spending more than Russia is on defense. Putin now finds himself stuck in a nightmare. And here's why. We mentioned several times already that Germany's new spending commitments, along with its overall plan to revitalize its military, represent a massive shift in Germany's attitude. To understand why, we need to take a closer look at Germany's history. Of course, Germany's actions during World War II have had a massive impact on its hesitance in building a stronger military. The country has hamstrung itself in many ways, in addition to being subject to various treaties that prevented it from amassing as strong a military force as it had during the Nazi era. However, Germany's military culture, or lack thereof, goes a little deeper than that. Like many European nations, Germany found itself under the Soviet yoke during the Cold War era. It had a somewhat unique situation in which the country was divided into East and West. West Germany became part of the Western-led hegemony that arose after World War II, with East Germany laboring under Soviet influence. There was even a huge wall separating the two sides of the country in Berlin, the collapse of which signaled the end of the Soviet Union as a geopolitical entity. You could argue that the decades Germany spent divided into two similar but disparate nations arrested the country's development somewhat, especially on the military front. As other European nations established new cultural norms in the wake of World War II, Germany found itself first split and then reunified. It's technically only been a country for around 35 years, with the priority over those 3 decades naturally being to create a sense of unity and national identity that was robbed of Germany for so long. It has succeeded in many ways. Germany now has one of Europe's strongest economies, and it's become a major voice in both European and national communities. However, it could be argued that this intense focus on diplomacy and rebuilding a national identity led to Germany's military falling behind.
Yeah, I think it definitely did. I think Germany completely focused on everything but military, and I think it's paid off because, let's be honest, Germany didn't need a military for the last however many decades, so it's fine. Might as well take all that military budget and put it back into trying to make life for citizens better, you know? Why not?
We even got signs of this during the first couple of years of the Ukraine war, such as the walking back of the law that would have obligated Germany to spend 2% of its GDP on defense. Divisions still existed, only this time it was happening not because of the Soviet Union, but due to Germany being unsure about what its response should be to the neo-Soviet Union Putin is trying to create. With all of these recent military announcements, Germany finally seems to have found a path forward, and it's a path out of Putin's nightmares. Where Russia's leader might have hoped to continue fostering division in Germany to prevent it from reaching its military potential, Germany has instead gone in the opposite direction. Strategically, it's leaving history, both in terms of its actions during World War II and the East-West Germany divide, in the past. The massive rearming we're seeing today is part of the dismantling of historical and fiscal taboos that have plagued Germany for decades.
Damn.
It essentially represents a culture change, a Germany that is again willing to militarize because it's convinced it's doing so for all the right reasons. Nowhere is that cultural shift more visible than in Germany's youth. On March 31st, the BBC published an article in which it quoted several younger Germans relating their opinions on their country's military revival. Charlotte Kreft, who is an 18-year-old who previously held pacifistic views, seems to reflect the overall mood in the country. For a really long time, we thought that the only way to make up for the atrocities we committed in World War II was to make sure it never happened again, and we thought we needed to demilitarize, she tells the BBC. But now we are in a situation where we have to fight for our values and democracy and freedom, and need to adapt. Her viewpoint is shared.
Interesting. This is actually something that I was curious about because I don't know the answer. I don't know it at all. So, yeah, I'm curious, like, what is the response of sort of the younger generations in Germany? Do the younger generations even want to join the military? Like, is Germany able to find people that want to sign up for the military and are willing to actually go and commit their lives to defending the country or whatever, you know, like whatever they have to do? I don't know. That's something I don't know the answer to. But yeah, I'm curious to see.
By another youngster named Ludwig Stein, who says, "There are lots of Germans who still feel strange about big investments in our military, but I think considering the things that have happened in the past few years, there's no other real option."
Yeah, I mean, again, this kind of goes back to, like, there's a big difference between spending a bunch of money on the military and actually having people that are signing up and want to go to training and want to put their lives on the line. That is the part that I'm curious about because, of course, you can just throw money at the problem, but if the people that are already in the military only signed up because they thought it was a good job and they never really expected to actually have to do any, you know, sort of defense or military deployment of any kind, or new people don't want to sign up because they're like, oh, there's actually a risk of having to do real military actions, I'm not going to do it then. And then you can't get anyone to sign up, then you can't grow your military. So I don't know. I'm curious what the overall sentiment is of, like, the younger generations, the generations that would be probably signing up for the military.
Therein lies the nightmare for Putin. His Ukraine invasion has pushed Germany to the realization that it's not the country it was leading into World War II, and certainly isn't the divided nation with no real identity it became in the years that followed. Germany is instead a paragon of European democracy. It's proven this time and time again through its work with the European Union, NATO, and its many partners. Perhaps you could say that Germany's military revival is a sure sign that the nation has finally forgiven itself for its past. The rest of Europe already had, and now Germany is actively preparing for a fight against Russia. The massive investment being made into the Bundeswehr proves this. So too does the rhetoric coming out of Germany. Back in April, the Inspector General of the Bundeswehr, General Carsten Breuer, essentially said that Germany finds itself in a state where it both is and isn't at war with Russia already. The categories of peace, crisis, or war that we so like to use are not used by the Russian side, he said. Russia sees war as a continuum, and thus uses measures that can already look like war but probably are not war yet. Breuer is referring to the many hybrid attacks Russia uses to disrupt its enemies.
So basically, like, Russian hackers, Russian propaganda all over social media, Russia paying politicians around the world to be corrupt politicians and spread lies and all kinds of other stuff, and all of these kind of ways of attacking countries without actually attacking them militarily, at least. I mean, it's working. You can see how effective it is in America at these Russian bots on social media, Russian hackers, Russian money flowing into American politics. It's undeniable that it is working. And that's all I'll say about that.
Which range from cyber attacks to cutting undersea cables. So a state is produced that is no longer completely peace, but also not completely war. And it's in this grey zone that we are operating, also with regard to Russia, Breuer concludes. The message to Putin is that Germany isn't being complacent anymore. It sees what Russia is doing to sow seeds of discord in Europe and even within Germany itself. If Russia wants to create this state of perpetual military uncertainty, Germany is going to be prepared if that state evolves into one more akin to traditional war. Merz makes that clear too. On May 14th, he announced his intention to transform Germany's military into the strongest Europe has to offer. The federal government will provide all the financial resources that the Bundeswehr needs to become the strongest conventional army in Europe, Merz claimed. This is more than appropriate for the most populous and economically strongest country in Europe. Our friends and partners also expect this from us, and what's more, they are actually demanding it. Days later, the new budgets we mentioned earlier in the video were announced. This quote also encapsulates Germany's changing attitude toward its military. Contrition is no longer on the table. Germany is prepared to step into the role of the European leader that is required of it by the very countries against which it has fought in the past. It's not quite there yet. Though Germany's finally hitting NATO's 2% of GDP target in 2024 led it to placing fourth, behind only the US, China, and Russia in military spending. Decades of underinvestment have caused issues within the German military. Global Firepower, which ranks 145 nations annually based on their military power, places Germany as the 14th strongest in 2025. That leaves it below other European partners such as France, the UK, Italy, and Turkey. Germany's goal now is to invest heavily and wisely to first bring itself into parity with those other nations, and then exceed their strength. And that's Putin's nightmare in a nutshell. Countries like France and the UK already took Russia seriously and are engaging in military strengthening of their own. With a resurgent power like Germany joining them, the prospect of Putin invading any more of Europe beyond Ukraine takes on a lot more risk. Russia won't be fighting a divided Europe. He'll face almost an entire continent united with a Germany that's stronger than it's been since World War II. And after Ukraine, with its military already weakened, that's a force that Putin can't hope to defeat. But what do you think about the nightmare Germany's military revival creates for Russia? Is it a nightmare from which Putin can wake up, perhaps due to Germany backing down from its big claims?
Oh man, all right. I would be curious to see what the younger generations think about actually joining the military, because at the end of the day, even with all of the amazing and crazy technology that has progressed in the defense sector, you still need people. And I don't know. I'm curious if people are still willing to sign up to join the military. I'm also curious to see how well the money is spent and if spending all that money actually is done effectively. So that's another thing that we just need to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys, the experts, think about it. So let me know your thoughts. Leave your mustard down in the comment section below. But that's all the time that I have for today. So thank you guys so much for being here. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.